Andrew Berry essentially handed in the card for Travis Hunter on Thursday, but is he bluffing? We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Andrew Berry made it obvious that they're going to take Travis Hunter, almost too obvious. We'll get into that. Plus, fifth-year options, who needs them? And Joe Flacco's signing here in Cleveland changes nothing in the way of the Browns' philosophy when it comes to taking a quarterback. I do want to thank you for being an everydayer with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed, with bonus content on some weekends as well, and it's totally free to you. All you got to do is hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, and of course, the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, where you can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on anything we discussed today in the comment section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I have 2 minutes. It feels like a long time. 2 minutes of audio of Andrew Berry gushing about Travis Hunter. I'm going to play that here for you in a second because he used phrases like unicorn. He compared him to, as I've done on this podcast, Shohei Ohtani and what he does in the NFL playing both, or in the MLB playing both ways, but in a football sense. And when you hear somebody gushing about a player this way, it either means it's one of two things. They either really love the guy and that's who they're going to take, or they are trying to sort of send out a smokescreen here and get anybody who maybe wants Travis Hunter to trade up and get him. And I find the thought process of this fascinating. Now, I have my stance on it and what I think it means, and I'll talk about it. But I want to play you this clip because Andrew Berry could not stop just gushing again about Travis Hunter and how incredible of a player he is, and that what he does as a two-way player and them scouting it has been incredible to watch.
I think one of the things that is like you can't probably fully appreciate until you actually see Travis play live is just his elite conditioning. Like, you know, going out and seeing him play at, you know, Colorado, he really never comes off the field. And it's unbelievable because, like, you know, there are more plays in a college game than there is a pro game. And it's like the guy, like, he barely pants, like that, you know, like that type of thing. So it's quite incredible. You know, that being said, you know, what he would attempt to do has not, you know, been really done in our league. But we wouldn't necessarily put a cap or a governor in terms of, like, what he could do. You know, we would want to be smart in terms of how we started him out. You know, I think I've mentioned before, you know, we would see his first home as receiver and his second home, you know, on the defense side of the ball. Yeah, I think, you know, one of the big things, he has a number of rare qualities, but probably the rarest is his ability with the ball, his ball skills. And, you know, we would want to put him in a position that maximizes that ability.
Are you concerned about the pounding, like the physical pounding, not the aerobic part, but, you know, the taking the hits on both sides of the ball, if he played on both sides for you?
Yeah, I think anytime a player across positions plays more snaps, you know, there certainly is more of that risk. You know, that being said, you know, playing on the perimeter positions, there's maybe a little bit less contact than there would be as you get closer to the ball. But it's something that, like, you know, look, 32 teams are would have to figure that out as they think through his profile, and you know, there would be some probably, like, learning on the fly if he were here.
He has to play on both sides to be worth that number 2 pick, because that's kind of how he's viewed, as the guy that can do both versus just is one side or the other.
No, I don't see it that way. I think it's, and I'm going to use a crossword now, it's a little bit like Ohtani, right, where you know, when he's playing one side, he's an outstanding player. If he's a pitcher or he's a hitter, he's an outstanding player. You obviously get a unicorn if you.
So when you drop words like unicorn and you compare him to Shohei Ohtani, who's arguably the best player in baseball, maybe even the best player of all time, there have been Babe Ruth comps made with Shohei Ohtani. It's hard not to think that the Browns love this guy and that they're infatuated with this guy and that they really want him at the number 2 overall pick. Now, could it be a smokescreen? And there's a lot of other things to sort of dissect from what he said. The playing two ways thing, how they're not going to cap him on that. They probably will give it a shot. He brings up a good point about on the perimeter, less contact than if you're playing like linebacker and trying to play both ways and play something on offense. So there's some truth in that. He did make it clear yet again that they view him more as a receiver. And so he's making it pretty obvious if they take Travis Hunter, where they're going to use him first and foremost. And they'll figure out the rest later when it comes to getting him in on defense, which he does want to do, as we talked about. So, listen, I think all those things make sense. But in terms of like, why is he being so transparent? Why is he being so candid about how he feels about Travis Hunter, how they feel as a team about Travis Hunter? I understand where at this late in the process, we've heard so many different things, so many conflicting reports, so many, it's this guy, it's that guy, where people would be maybe trying to go galaxy brain and think like this has to have a deeper meaning at this point, right? Like we're a week out from the draft. And maybe it is. Maybe this is Andrew Berry trying to entice somebody to come up and get Travis Hunter because he's calling him a unicorn and all these different things. But I don't think there's much to be lost or gained by saying these things that Andrew Berry said. The Browns are essentially pick one now, since we all know what the Titans are going to be doing. They're taking Cam Ward. It's been pretty much etched in stone. It's been their fate for several months now, since pretty much the NFL Combine. But I guess you could say like within the last month, it really cemented itself after he had his pro day and they sent everybody in the organization from the ticket salespeople to the owner to be there in attendance to see him play or throw. Like it became pretty clear at that time, like, okay, they're taking Cam Ward and nobody else. And that's a smart move for them. So fine. But with understanding that the draft starts with the Browns. And so whether they love a guy or not, like they can say what they want about any of these players because they don't have anything to lose in terms of somebody coming to get that player or somebody taking that player from them because they're locked into two and they know what the top team is doing. So essentially that makes them the number one pick. Like everyone keeps saying the draft starts with them. And so it does feel like to me that them saying these things is genuine and that they really do believe in Travis Hunter. Now, I want to make this clear. That doesn't mean Abdul Carter's out of play. They could still draft a guy like Abdul Carter, who they were linked to for a period of time, obviously this offseason. And those are the two like blue chip guys. You could probably throw Ashton Genty into that list, but I don't think they're taking a running back that high in a deep class. But those are the two guys that make the most sense here, right? So if that happens, they could take Carter. So fine, but like one way or another, it doesn't matter if they're like gushing about these guys. And that was the thing I want to say was part of this conversation around Travis Hunter, why he's talked so much about it is because he's asked so much about Travis Hunter. And there's so much, I think there's a lot of fascination just with his game in general. The fact that he wants to play both ways, all these different things, his athleticism, if he can do it, that there's always more questions that come up about him. Garrett, he hasn't been asked. I think Abdul Carter's name came up like 2 times in the press conference on Thursday, whereas Travis Hunter's was like nonstop throughout the press conference, people asking about this with Travis Hunter, that with Travis Hunter. So just keep that in mind. But listen, I don't think that Andrew Berry's like, and maybe I'm completely wrong here. I don't think this is him like giving his best sales pitch on one last time to try to get some team to trade up, because I think everybody at this point understands who Travis Hunter is. And I think everybody understands like the unicorn, quote unquote, that he can be in the NFL. I'll also say this. It feels a little too late in the game for me for a team to potentially trade up to the top spots on the board. That usually only happens first of all for quarterbacks. And those trades are generally done before the draft. Like they're usually completed months before the draft, not like the week leading up to it or the night of that a team gets up that high to try to take a player. So I keep those things in mind. I think about those things. I think this is really the Browns telling you like they really do like Travis Hunter. Maybe they'll go the opposite of what they're making us think, and they'll take Abdul Carter. But I do think they like what Travis Hunter brings to the table. I still think he's going to be the pick in my heart of hearts, and I'm sure you might as well. And I think the Browns are going to get a hell of a player if this is who they select here at number 2. And clearly the way they think about him, when you use the term unicorn, which has been used in this town for another player on a different team in town, Like that's pretty telling about how excited and like they are about getting their hands on this guy and trying to mold him. It would be weird that they would use those types of terms and call and say the guy is that rare of a talent to then not take him at number 2 overall. Again, unless he's bluffing. But I don't buy that he's bluffing. Also, from Andrew Berry's press conference, I've been banging the drum for trading back up in the first round to take a quarterback or take your second player because you get that 5th-year option. Not as important to Andrew Berry as it turns out, as I thought it would be, and I'm sure as many thought it would be. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives your businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with the freelance experts who deliver incredible results. Fast and easy hiring. Another feature. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Cost-effective growth. Yes, instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business and efficiency. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. to connect with the top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you are building and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain, that's easier. Managing logistics, that's easier. Responding to price changes, also easier. From small businesses to big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com. All right, so another thing that Andrew Berry talked about in his pre-draft press conference on Thursday was the idea of trading back up into the first round, which has been rumored by numerous people, potentially for Shedeur Sanders, right? And we've talked about that at length here, but it could be for another quarterback. Maybe they just want to get a guy with the 5th-year option and, have him for an extra year and make that a deal that they make in the first round. And I've been saying, or make a deal to get back into the first round to do so. I've been saying for several weeks now, maybe even over a month now, that trading up into the first round feels like it's something that's an easy thing the Browns can accomplish, and that they should do it no matter what position they're trying to address with that second pick. Because whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a defensive end, whatever it is, having the player for an extra year of control, I think is valuable. Now, Andrew Berry feels differently. And after he was asked about how much the 5th-year option is something that they would consider when they weigh potentially trading back up into the first round, or how much that means to them, Berry said, quote unquote, I'm not playing you a video clip here because it would be like a 2-second clip. He said, honestly, not a ton. Those are his exact words. Now, again, this could be seen as a leverage play, bluffing. Maybe he doesn't want other teams thinking that they can get one over on him by being like, hey, why don't you trade back up and give us all these picks? And, you want that 5th-year option, right? Like he's maybe playing hardball and saying like, I don't care so much about the 5th-year option. I'll just stay at 33 and take my guy if I so choose. So maybe that's what it is here. But if this is true, if Andrew Berry really, if they don't sort of operate under a philosophy, and given the way he said it, I think he was sort of being pretty candid here. Like if this is how they operate and they don't care about the 5th-year option, like that changes the game in terms of them trading up. I think that probably takes it off the table almost entirely, unless it's like they have a guy on their board that they have such a high grade on that they just can't, they don't want to risk waiting to see if he makes it through the last like 5 picks or something like that. They want him now. And so they'll trade up to like 28 or something to get there and see if they can swing a deal to draft said player and, set themselves up for a long time with 2, knockout players that they get in the first round. So maybe that's the only way that it kind of goes through. And Andrew Berry will always say, as he did yesterday, I wouldn't rule out anything at this point. Like, he's always keeping doors open, never really closing doors on things. And so that's just kind of how it goes. But here's the thing for me, like, I'd be shocked. I was shocked by the answer because I feel like the 5th year option should matter to every team. It gives you an extra year of evaluation. Now, you could argue, and I would say this, like, by year 3, you should have a better sense of who a player is going to be. And so you'll kind of know going in whether or not you're going to use that 5th year option on a guy. Now, they did it with Jedrick Wills, and after 3 years, we kind of knew who he was. And it bought them a little more time to, like, maybe not have to fully address the left tackle spot. Like, you can do things like that. It sort of is an extra maneuver for you. I also think, too, here's the 5th year option is most important when it comes to the quarterback position, which is why it's been talked about so much, the idea of them trading up back into the first to get a quarterback. Because if you do that, that extra year with a quarterback on a rookie deal is immensely valuable, like beyond belief. And because here's the thing, at some point, you're going to want to pay that guy a contract extension. We know how quarterback deals work, right? If you hit on a guy, you're going to be paying him $50 million a year to be your starting franchise quarterback. So you delay that process by getting that 5th year option with a quarterback because it gives you an extra year where they're at a minimal cost to you to then do the things that you want to do. Now, Andrew Berry, maybe this is why it doesn't matter to him. He finagles the salary cap anyway, right? Like, how many times do we get on this podcast and I talk about how Andrew Berry restructured another deal? He kicked more money down. He kicked the can down the road on another contract, and they're gonna have to pay it later. That's the type of stuff that he does. So maybe that it doesn't matter to him in that respect. And another good point that I did hear that somebody brought up to me on the quarterback point with the 5th year option is that, listen, if you hit on a guy, you're likely going to, like, you're going to give him the extension in like year 3 anyway. And there is some truth in that. Yes. Like, if you'll get out in front of the market and get the deal done rather than wait. But a lot of times those deals like don't kick in until year 5 or beyond. So it still buys you a little extra time to get them on a lower cost or a more affordable cost of a deal before you have to really eat the big money. And then you have less flexibility in what you can do around the roster. Like, having more time to build out the roster around that quarterback, if you get it right, and add guys and bolster other areas, that is immensely valuable, or should be immensely valuable to teams, which is why, like I said, I was stunned by Andrew Berry's answer that the 5th year option is not something that matters to them in the grand scheme of evaluating guys and where we want to take them and if we're going to make a trade to get up into the draft. Again, could be bluffing, could be playing poker. I don't feel like there's a ton to lose or gain from admitting that or not admitting that. The only thing I get is, and somebody brought this up to me, the idea that, like, you don't want to get put over a barrel if some team thinks they can fleece you because they know you really want 5th year options or whatever. But I don't even think that would be the case. Like, Barry's usually pretty measured, and he does well for himself on the trade market. I know what you're going to say. The Deshaun trade was a disaster. Yes, not so much with that trade, but there's other deals. I mean, we know the Amari Cooper deal is a great one. The Jerry Jeudy deal last year. I mean, they traded a 5th round pick for a guy who went on to put up a 1,000-yard season and is maybe now a wide receiver 1 for you. Like, I think Andrew Berry's at least giving you confidence that he can do those things in the trade market. I don't think he's ever going to get sort of put over a barrel in that way, even if he did care about 5th year options. But I was certainly shocked by this answer because I just feel like that 5th year option is an extra. It adds value to guys that you get in the first round. And, makes you want to keep them, or allows you to keep them a little bit longer before you got to get to that big payday, which is the most important part of all this. Because as you're building a roster, the longer you can delay the big contracts to guys, the better as you fill out the rest of your team and try to chase Super Bowls. And every team wants it that way. So, sort of a surprising answer. One of the more, Barry never really says a lot, but it was one of the more shocking things that he probably said yesterday, or one of the more like, oh, okay, this is interesting moments of that press conference. And we'll see what happens next week and if it comes to fruition. But as things stand today, I would probably bank on the Browns don't trade up back into the first round for a player, just based off of that answer from Andrew Berry. one more thing from the Andrew Berry press conference that I thought was pretty important to hear, as he talked about the impact of the Joe Flacco signing on their plans at the quarterback position. Speaking of that nagging quarterback position that they can't seem to settle. We'll talk about that coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. All you got to do is grab a pair of controllers, subscribe to sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with your EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to Avowed. As easily as you stream from your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all available via your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more, the Amazon Fire TV Stick has got you covered. I can tell you, in our house, we have, I think, 4 of these Amazon Fire TV Sticks for each TV in our household. It is our go-to platform for streaming in our house, and really, frankly, when we're anywhere. We sometimes take it with us to my parents' house because they don't believe in cable. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Alrighty, so the other thing that Andrew Berry talked about, and I do have another audio and video clip here for you for those who are in our viewing audience. This one's much shorter, so you'll appreciate that. Was the signing of Joe Flacco, and there was lots of questions. He was peppered with questions about what this means for the quarterback room and what this means for what they're going to try to do with the quarterback room coming up in the draft next week. He basically said it changes nothing. So let's listen to what Andrew Berry had to say about it yesterday.
I wouldn't say that that's the case at all, Daryl. Like, we wouldn't consider, signing Joe as having any real impact in terms of how we would view taking a quarterback in the draft. We firmly believe that it's not about picking a player who's, ready to contribute now. It's about trying to find the player that you think is going to be the best if you have access to that player. And look, I think you can think about, Patrick Mahomes had his whole first year. Josh Allen, it really took to year 3 for him to become Josh Allen. Lamar probably hit the ground running pretty quickly. Jalen Hurts, there were doubts about him until he probably hit year 3. So quarterbacks mature and grow at their own pace, and our thought isn't in terms of immediacy, but making the next long-term bet.
Now, again, I know we're all looking for the galaxy brain takes here based on everything Andrew Berry's saying. We love to dissect stuff this time of year, especially a week out from the draft, to try to piece together what they're going to do and figure out where their head's at and who they're going to take at this pick and that pick and the third. Now, when it comes to hearing those comments from Andrew Berry, hearing him talk about quarterbacks maturing and developing and needing time to grow, and he uses the examples of Patrick Mahomes sat, and he uses the example of Lamar Jackson maybe taking off immediately, but then he's still growing into his role. And then you hear him bring up the name Jalen Hurts, which is a fascinating name to mention because, A, it's the Eagles where he came from and has this Howie Roseman shrine that he worships at. But also because the quarterback that I've been talking about as a guy that I don't necessarily love in this class, but I feel like the Browns are going to take is Jalen Milroe. And the best comparison you can make between Milroe and going to the NFL is probably Jalen Hurts, guy who has some rawness to his game. Now, I've said it. I think Jalen Hurts was a more refined passer coming out of college, and I stand by that. But, from the athleticism standpoint, it's unmatched. And so between that and between hearing Andrew Berry essentially maybe not quite as much, he didn't rave quite as much about Milroe as he did Travis Hunter, but he had another line here that I'll sort of read to you. So, yeah, he said he was asked about Dart and Milroe and all these different things, and he said basically that I think Jalen, he's got a rare physical talent. When he gets to the NFL, he may be the only quarterback who's faster than Lamar. Don't tell Lamar I said that, please. He's got rare physical gifts. He's strong. He's fast. He's got a really strong arm. And any system that you build around him, you want to take advantage of the fact that he has those things that no other player at the position can have. And then he got into Jackson, but I'm less concerned with that because, again, when comparisons come out, that's where I start. My ears sort of perk up a little bit because him comparing him to Lamar Jackson, guy who's in your division, who you see twice a year, like that almost feels like you're banking on the potential of, hey, if this guy works out, we could have a quarterback that goes toe-to-toe with a 2-time league MVP and Lamar Jackson. Like, how about that? And that's what it feels like when I hear these comments from Andrew Berry as he talks about the quarterback position. This is pointing me more to Jalen Milroe. And here's what I'll say. I will concede one thing on this because I have my doubts about Milroe. To me, he's probably the worst passer in this class. And he's got a very strong arm. I'll give him that. But if he's not throwing like Hail Marys and deep balls, like he's super inaccurate. And those issues concern me. Like it's why I like Shedeur Sanders because he's going to get the ball out on time. He's going to be able to read the field. He's a good decision maker. Milroe, I'm not so sure on those things. But here's what I'll say in to the Browns' credit, if they were to draft him at 33 or wherever, if you're drafting somebody out of the first round, like you want a guy who has a ceiling, like his athleticism it probably means he has a higher ceiling than most of the other guys in this class. And a weak class, by the way. Like there's another level to his game that you can get to if you can make him a better passer, right? And that's kind of my point here. So, like, despite how I feel about his tape and his inability to, throw to guys and some of the off-target passes that he's made, a lot of the off-target passes that he's made, and I know he's worked on some things this offseason, that's good to see. I understand what they see if they take Jalen Milroe and why they're sort of banking, especially as like a second or third round pick, on him potentially panning out to be this larger-than-life quarterback that can do something at the NFL. And in a draft where it's a down year for quarterbacks, I can understand taking a guy for that reason over, just taking the guy who is just kind of like a standard quarterback and you sort of see limitations and you're just hoping that it's not the complete ceiling for him. So from that standpoint, I get it. The comparison to Lamar Jackson felt pretty noticeable and made me think like they really like this guy and only adds fuel to the fire on my case, my take that they're probably going to end up with this room being Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Jalen Milroe. Now, listen, there are legitimate questions about him developing to that guy in the NFL. And the other part of this too is like if they have time to develop him, because let's face it, this entire regime could get fired at the end of the season, or they could just be drafting another quarterback next year. Now, they can't operate that way. They can't go into the draft thinking about how, their job security is on the line here and do they have time to develop a guy? And Andrew Berry said at the Combine, that will not weigh at all into like how they make their picks or the decisions that they make on draft night or anything like that. So that's good to hear. And that's how you want your organization to operate. You don't want them thinking in the back of their heads about the idea that they could get fired before this guy really realizes his full potential. But and here's the thing too, like you could, whether they get the full picture on Milroe or not next year, and I do believe he will play in some capacity. If you take a quarterback in this draft, all these guys have some doubts. You're going to have to sort of evaluate here and get a sense of like what they bring to the table. You're going to want him to play at some point next year to at least give yourself some sense of here's what we have or here's what we don't have before you go, draft a quarterback. So like, but here's the thing, like taking a quarterback in the second round doesn't prevent you from taking one next year, regardless of if you get that full picture on the guy or you don't. Unless I guess he comes out, like if Jalen Milroe came out and he was like Jaden Daniels, then I guess you'd have an answer, right? You don't have to take a quarterback next year. But I don't think that's going to happen. So whether he like plays 5-6 games and he looks amazing and we're like, we think we have something here, or he looks like okay and there's still some doubts, you can still go back and take a quarterback next year, whether or not he's further along in his development or he still has a way to go or whatever. And then the worst case scenario is you have two quarterbacks that maybe have some value and you can maybe trade one. So from a standpoint of ceiling, I get the Milroe hype. I get why someone's going to take Milroe, and it might be the Browns. And it certainly feels like it's trending in that direction. And I can at least wrap my head around the idea of, okay, if you take Jalen Milroe, you are banking on the athleticism, he has a higher ceiling than some of these other guys that we've mentioned. And that as a thought process makes a ton of sense to me. So as much as I don't love him as a prospect, I can at least get behind the thinking there as to why you make that move. And I would just plan on seeing him at some point next year so they can at least get a little bit of an evaluation on what he is or what he's going to be, even if it's not the full painting or picture of the quarterback that he's going to become. Another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. There will be more to come, maybe over the weekend if there's any crazy news that comes down. But obviously next week, guys, draft week, finally here. How about that? We made it. I'm as relieved as you because I feel like we've been talking about the same thing in circles over and over again. So I'm happy to actually, in less than a week, have legitimate players that the team drafted to talk about. And you want to make sure you hit that subscribe button to make Locked On Browns your first listen every day so you can be part of that conversation next week. For your second listen, check out our Locked On NFL draft show. We got our mock draft rolling now. First several rounds of picks or several sections of picks are already sort of up on our respective YouTube channels. But you can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs, who are getting ready for a playoff run, and Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. Have a nice weekend, and peace.